Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we got some more 2A news for you, and this one I guess would technically be an op-ed from GOA, but I wanted to share it because it provides a lot of good context and data. You know, the war of ideas is never ending, and of course, you know, a lot of the anti-gunners, they always try to parrot all of these very divisive and incorrect narratives, and they just downright lie about data and statistics to try to provoke an emotional response. I mean, in fact, a lot of, for instance, I use Twitter quite a bit, and if you're not following me on Twitter, definitely make sure you do, because I'm always posting all kind of cool stuff on Twitter, and it's a great place to, you know, get some ideas out there and try to garner a little bit of perspective about what's going on. But the point is, a lot of the anti-gunners actually block people like me because they know their ideas are so easily defeated, right, just by a little bit of basic research. But they rely on an uneducated and uninformed base in order to kind of take advantage of their emotions and get them to, you know, be driven to action in that regard. So this op-ed does sort of, you know, get to the bottom of that a little bit, that talking point, in a very fair and concise way. So we're going to get into this. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting our videos. If you're looking for a career in gunsmithing, they are definitely your go-to group of people. They've got amazing instructors, awesome curriculum. They've even got some awesome drone programs. You can learn about reloading. Of course, everything you need to know about gunsmithing. They have great financial incentives and financial aid packages. Check them out, Sonoran Desert Institute, SDI, and tell them we sent you. Great group of people. Big thanks to them. Let's get into this. This is it doesn't mention an author specifically. It just says written by gun owners of America. So this is probably a group effort. At this point, it's called, I'm sorry, guns are not the leading cause of death among children. All right, so this is a fact sheet from GOA. Let's go over some of it. At this point, it's no surprise that the anti-gun political left would attempt to capitalize on the deaths of children to push their anti-gun political agenda. Time and time again, anti-gunners do everything they can to keep our schools vulnerable by refusing the requests for armed security, such as allowing teachers and parents to exercise their Second Amendment right to self-defense. Ever since Joe Biden introduced the Gun-Free School Zones Act as part of the Crime Control Act of 1990, this useless gun control has yet to deter a single mass public murderer at a school. Yet immediately following a mass murder at a Christian elementary school in Tennessee, President Biden began a news conference with a stand-up comedy routine about ice cream. I'm not even going to read it because it's just dumb. Anti-gunners like Joe Biden refuse to admit that their gun control policies are at fault when a mass murderer attacks a gun-free school. Not only does the anti-gun crowd avoid responsibility by putting children at risk, but they also routinely double down with the lie that guns are the leading cause of death of children. In fact, the mayor of Nashville was quick to state this fallacy at a press conference following the shooting. This fact sheet will thoroughly debunk the phony statistic. Anti-gun statistic and corresponding studies include 18 and 19-year-old adults as if they were children. When the anti-gunners raise this phony statistic, they will usually say something like guns are the leading cause of death for children, like Representative Adriano Epelast or the New York Times. I probably said that name wrong. I apologize. If they are unaware, or if they are aware of the flaw in the data, then they might add in a sneaky disclaimer and say that guns are the leading cause of death for children and teens, like Representative Nancy Pelosi or Everytown for Gun Safety, which, of course, those people block you on social media because you can't, you know, they won't allow you to call them out on their bullcrap. The ultimate flaw of this statistic is that everyone is using the same misleading data, which counts 18 and 19-year-olds adults as children. One such study, which appears at the top of Google search results, is called the Current Causes of Death in Children and Adolescents in the United States, and yet also uses the same deceitful data set of legal adults. Less than a month after anti-gun researchers published this bias study, the Biden administration began promoting it on the National Institutes of Health website, a clear violation of the Dickey Amendment prohibiting Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and NIH from promoting or advocating gun control. NIH misleadingly titled this article the leading cause of childhood death. What does CDC data show is the leading cause for death of children, excluding legal adults. Again, I believe, while I'm moving on to the next page here, I'll just mention before we get started again, remember, it was none other than the gun groups themselves, the anti-gun groups, that actually pushed the CDC to hide the defensive gun use statistics because it was harmful to their narrative. And the CDC actually wound up obliging to their request and hid the defensive gun use statistics from the public. I mean, that right there should be a crime in of itself. That should require some investigation. I mean, there needs to be a congressional, inquiry about that, okay? Excluding legal adults from the data set and including all minors, those under the age of 18, tells a strikingly different story. According to CDC's underlying cause of death, sorted by injury mechanism and all other leading causes, the top 3 causes of death are certain conditions originating in the perinatal period. I guess that would be like stillborn, or like something like that. Congenital malformations, deformations, and chromosomal abnormalities. Those are some big words for a redneck, y'all. I'm trying my best. And symptoms, signs, and abnormal clinical and laboratory findings. If teenagers are excluded and only children up to 12 years old are included in the data set, then suffocation, motor vehicle accidents, and drowning also cause more childhood death than firearms. President Biden's Gun-Free School Zones Act hasn't worked for 3 decades. In fact, the killer intentionally attacked Covenant School instead of a better defended school. Let's just do something new and effective. During school hours, there has never been a shooting in a school where teachers were armed, let alone a mass public murder. Instead of blaming the tool, a firearm, society should blame the murderers and empower law-abiding citizens like teachers and parents to defend children in the classroom. And of course, in this particular fact sheet roundup, it gives a whole bunch of different citations on the work. I'll put that link in the description box below so that you can, research on your own. I mean, look, I'll just be fair here and say that any amount of statistics can be skewed a certain way depending on how you look at those statistics. To say that the anti-gunners, manipulate statistics to, further drive a narrative is definitely true. The same can also be said in either direction. So I think before we get too wrapped up on statistics and data and all that sort of stuff, I think it's really more important to deal in solutions, right? And those solutions obviously do not work. We've tried the Democrat solutions for over 30 years, and the data shows clearly and concisely that shootings only got worse after that school act was passed, right? So whereby on the surface area of a bill like that, they're like, oh, well, what could be wrong with that? We obviously don't want guns in our schools, but that doesn't factor in reality. I mean, reality is that a criminal is going to break the law, and they don't care. They don't care that the guns aren't allowed in the school. They don't care that there's a gun-free zone sign outside. All they care about is they're hell-bent on evil, and they're going to carry out that evil in any way they see fit. And the only way to stop somebody that's got a gun is another person with a gun. We've tried to tell people this for over 2 decades. This is nothing new. We want to deal in solutions. We know what the solutions are because we look at the data, and we know what makes us safe is having people with guns and the ability to defend ourselves. Now, is that to say that, there's still not going to be some situations slip through the cracks? Well, of course there is. I mean, any person can get surprised by a gunman and unfortunately not react fast enough to fix the situation, but we have to try. We have to give them the tools available to them and the tools that they need to defend themselves against these shooters, right? We need to fund school resource officers if we need to, or private security, or, have more programs in place where we arm the teachers. Of course, I'm beating a dead horse here when I mention these things because it goes without saying that, I support the idea of armed teachers. I support the idea of having a way for these schools to fight back, to harden themselves up, to have harder security, to have better measures in place to protect our students, to protect our kids, right? We put armed guards in the bank to protect our money. You notice you don't really hear of banks getting robbed that often, do you? I mean, it happens, I'm sure, but on the level that you would ever, think that these shootings have occurred? No, because there's an armed guard in a lot of the banks, especially in the inner cities and things like that. And guess what? People don't rob banks when they think they might get shot in the process. So we need to turn our schools into the same type of areas, right? You know, if a plainclothes resource officer is walking around, you know, he don't have to wear a uniform, right? Maybe just a badge on his belt or something like that, and a polo, and he can walk around with a concealed carry. You know, he ain't got to have his gun poking out if it makes the students feel weird. Fine, conceal it, right? You don't have to tell them which teachers are armed and which ones are. You know, maybe the administration at the school needs to know who their designated shooters are, right? And of course, that could just be as simple as a cell phone call. Hey, something just popped off. You might want to get your guns out and get ready and lock up. You know, there's certain protocols. Anytime there's a potential situation that's negative, you have protocols that you follow, right? You have, you know, your SOPs for a reason, your standard operating procedure that gives you a predetermined path that you need to take to deal with a situation. So they need to have better SOPs. They need to have designated shooters in their schools, teachers with training. And look, if they want to get the training, let them get the training, right? But if they don't want to carry a gun, or they don't want to be responsible for a gun, they shouldn't have to. We're not saying, they're not saying it's got to be mandatory, right? But how many situations have there been in the past where, you know, you've got, you know, military veterans that wind up being teachers, and they would probably love to be able to protect their kids, and they already have the training necessary from the military, at least to point them in the right direction of having some proficiency with firearms. How many veterans are there in our, you know, educational systems that are teaching right now that would probably be the perfect person to designate to continue, you know, protecting their children in their classrooms? Our most precious resource, our most precious commodity is our children. Food for thought, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, rather. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this particular fact sheet. I mean, look, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. I can beat a dead horse all day long, but at the end of the day, we know what the real solutions are, and we've been trying to provide those solutions for a long time, and I'm just getting sick of seeing society just try the same old thing and expect a different result. That's the definition of insanity. You know, I think it's time for them to try our solutions out, and I think you'll see that our solutions are actually going to work. So I don't want to deal in rhetoric. I don't want to deal in mudslinging. I want to deal in solutions. That's what I care about. If you want to support GOA, check out the link below. You can use my sign up and get yourself a discount. If you do want to join, I am the Georgia State Director for GOA, so I would appreciate if you join GOA, especially here in Georgia. I mean, look, we got to bump those Georgia numbers up, y'all, and maybe I might throw a pizza party for us or something. We'll see. I might be able to put together a cool shindig for us, or a range day or something. So, look, if you want to join GOA, that's great. I receive zero financial compensation in connection with your membership. So if you join GOA, 100% of that money goes to them, and you get the discount by using my code. So that's great for you to get a discount. You can become a member, and you know, all that money goes right back towards the fight for GOA. So thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Many more on the way. We'll see you soon.